The evening started with candlelight, soft music, and Logan pouring me a glass of my favorite red wine. Everything about the moment felt perfect, like something out of a romantic movie. "I've been waiting all week for this," he said with a smile, sitting across from me. "You and me both," I replied, taking a sip of the wine. Logan had always been good at creating these little moments. He'd insisted on making dinner tonight: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and a dessert he wouldn't reveal. I couldn't help but wonder if this dinner was leading to something bigger. We'd been together for 3 years, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was building up to a proposal. But halfway through the meal, things took an unexpected turn. Logan's phone buzzed on the counter, and his face changed instantly. The warm, relaxed expression vanished, replaced by something sharper, almost nervous. "You can get that," I said, motioning toward the phone. "It's nothing," he replied quickly, reaching for his glass. I let it go, but the moment stayed with me. Logan had never been the type to act cagey about his phone. Later, as I was helping him clear the dishes, I noticed something odd. Tucked behind the coffee maker on the counter was an envelope with a logo I recognized: Bentley Jewelers. My heart raced. Was this it? Had he finally bought an engagement ring? I glanced over at Logan, who was rinsing plates at the sink, and slid the envelope out from behind the coffee maker. My hands trembled as I opened it, half expecting to find a receipt for a diamond ring. But what I found wasn't what I expected. It was a receipt for a diamond bracelet, engraved with the initials JS. My stomach dropped. Those weren't my initials. "Everything okay?" Logan asked suddenly, turning toward me. I shoved the envelope back where I'd found it, plastering on a smile. "Yeah, just looking for a clean towel," I said, grabbing one from a nearby drawer. But my mind was racing. Who was JS? And why was Logan buying them an expensive bracelet? That night, as Logan slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My thoughts spiraled. The dinner, the phone call, the bracelet, it all felt off. I wanted to confront him right then and there, but something held me back. I needed more information before I accused him of anything. I decided to wait, to dig a little deeper. But I had no idea just how deep this rabbit hole would go. The morning after finding the receipt, I couldn't shake the image of those initials, JS. They hovered in my mind like an unwelcome guest, casting doubt over every interaction I had with Logan. As we sat at the breakfast table, Logan scrolled through his phone, sipping his coffee like it was any other day. But to me, everything felt different. "Got any big plans today?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't look up. "Just work stuff," he said with a shrug. "What about you?" I forced a smile. "Oh, nothing much. Might clean up around the house, maybe run some errands." He nodded, distracted, his attention still on his phone. That's when I noticed something else. His phone screen was tilted just enough that I could see the conversation he was texting in, a name at the top of the chat. Jamie S. My chest tightened. JS. As soon as Logan left for work, I grabbed my laptop and started piecing together what little information I had. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the coincidences were too glaring to ignore. I remembered Logan mentioning a Jamie before, a co-worker he'd brought up a few times in passing. She'd just started at his firm a few months ago, he'd said, and they were working closely on a big project. I'd never thought much about it at the time. Logan was charming, but he wasn't the kind of guy to mix work with anything messy. At least, that's what I'd always believed. Now I wasn't so sure. I started with his social media accounts, scrolling through his list of coworkers until I found her, Jamie Simmons. Her profile picture was of a blonde woman with a bright smile, holding a coffee cup in one hand and what looked like a planner in the other. She didn't look like someone who'd shatter someone else's life. But then again, appearances could be deceiving. As I scrolled through her profile, something caught my eye, a post from a few weeks ago. It was a photo of a table set for two at an upscale restaurant. The caption read, "An unforgettable evening." Blackheart, my blood ran cold. The restaurant was the same one Logan had been at late one night when he claimed he'd been meeting a client. I confronted Rachel about it that afternoon over coffee. "You're going to think I'm crazy," I said, stirring my latte, "but I think Logan's hiding something from me." She raised an eyebrow. "What kind of something?" I hesitated, lowering my voice. "I found a receipt for a diamond bracelet. It's engraved with initials JS. And there's this coworker of his, Jamie Simmons." Rachel's eyes widened. "You think he's—" "I don't know," I admitted. "But it's all adding up. The late nights, the secrecy, the weird behavior. It doesn't feel right." She leaned back in her chair, her expression serious. "Have you talked to him about it?" "Not yet," I said, shaking my head. "I don't want to accuse him without proof." "Then get proof," she said firmly. That evening, as Logan cooked dinner, I slipped into his office. My heart was pounding as I opened his desk drawer, searching for anything that might give me more answers. At first, it seemed like a dead end, just paperwork and random office supplies. But then I found it, a small black notebook tucked beneath a stack of folders. I flipped through it quickly, my hands shaking. Most of the pages were filled with work notes, but near the back, I found something that made my stomach drop. A calendar entry for last month, scribbled in Logan's handwriting. "Dinner with JS, 7 p.m., La Belle." The same night, he told me he was working late. I shut the notebook and shoved it back into the drawer, my mind racing. This wasn't just a coincidence anymore. Logan was hiding something, and Jamie Simmons was at the center of it. But the most unsettling part? Something about the way he'd been acting made me feel like there was more to the story, something I hadn't uncovered yet. After finding Logan's notebook, the weight of suspicion became impossible to ignore. Every glance he gave me, every word he said felt loaded, like there was a second meaning I couldn't quite grasp. That night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't stop staring at him. He was already asleep, his breathing slow and even. How could someone look so peaceful while hiding so much? I turned over, unable to shake the thought that I needed answers, real answers. I wasn't going to find them sitting around and waiting. The next morning, Logan left early for work, saying he had a big meeting downtown. As soon as he was gone, I grabbed his spare key and headed for his car. His trunk had always been a black hole of clutter, gym clothes, old receipts, random odds and ends. But I'd never had a reason to dig through it before. It didn't take long to find something out of place. Beneath a gym bag, I spotted a small, gift-wrap box. My hands trembled as I pulled it out and peeled back the edge of the wrapping. Inside was a velvet jewelry box. I opened it slowly, holding my breath. A diamond bracelet sparkled back at me, the light catching on its delicate chain. I turned it over, looking for the engraving I'd seen on the receipt. There it was, JS. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the bracelet, my mind racing. This was it, proof that Logan had been lying to me. But before I could think of my next move, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. "Hey," I said, trying to steady my voice. "Are you okay?" she asked, her tone urgent. "Not really," I admitted. "I just found the bracelet. The one for Jamie." There was a pause. "You need to come over," she said finally. "There's something you should see." When I got to Rachel's apartment, she was waiting with her laptop open. "Logan posted a picture on his work profile this morning," she said, turning the screen toward me. It was a photo of Logan and Jamie, standing next to each other at what looked like a charity event. They were both smiling, but there was something about the way she leaned into him that made my stomach churn. "That's not all," Rachel said, clicking on Jamie's profile. Her most recent post was a picture of herself, taken in front of a mirror. She was holding her stomach, which had a noticeable bump. "Ready to meet you soon, little one." Two hearts. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. "Do you think—" I started, but I couldn't finish the sentence. Rachel looked at me, her expression serious. "It's possible. The timing adds up." I felt like the floor was falling out from under me. If Jamie was pregnant, and if Logan was involved, this wasn't just an affair. This was a betrayal on a level I couldn't comprehend. That evening, I waited for Logan to come home, my thoughts a storm of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. When he walked through the door, smiling like everything was normal, I couldn't hold back any longer. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. "Okay," he said cautiously, setting down his bag. I pulled the bracelet from my pocket and held it up. "Who is this for?" His face paled. "Where did you find that?" "Don't," I snapped. "Just tell me the truth, Logan. Who is Jamie Simmons? And is she pregnant with your child?" The color drained from his face entirely. I can't explain," he stammered. "Then explain," I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "Because right now, it looks like you've been lying to me for months. About everything." Logan slumped into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "It's not what you think," he said finally, his voice muffled. "Then what is it?" I demanded. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with guilt. "She's pregnant, yes. But it's not what you think. I didn't want to tell you because—" "Because what?" I spat. "Because I'm trying to help her," he said desperately. "She's in trouble. The baby isn't mine, but she's scared and alone, and I was trying to be there for her." I froze, my anger warring with disbelief. "Do you expect me to believe that?" "It's the truth," he insisted. "She's a friend. That's all. I bought the bracelet because she's been through so much, and I wanted to do something nice for her." I stared at him, my heart pounding. His explanation sounded absurd, but the look in his eyes, guilt, desperation, and something else I couldn't quite place, made me hesitate. "I don't know if I can believe you," I said finally, my voice breaking. Logan leaned forward, his expression pleading. "Please, just give me a chance to prove it. I'll tell you everything, anything you want to know. Just don't walk away." I didn't know what to do. The man I thought I knew was unraveling before my eyes, and the truth still felt out of reach. Logan's insistence that Jamie's baby wasn't his left me torn between disbelief and the faintest glimmer of hope. The man I'd spent 3 years with couldn't have done something so cruel, could he? But the evidence against him felt overwhelming. "You say the baby isn't yours," I said, my voice trembling. "Then why the secrecy? Why hide your relationship with Jamie from me?" Logan exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. "Because I knew how it would look," he admitted. "Jamie, she's going through hell right now. The father of her baby disappeared when she told him she was pregnant. She doesn't have anyone else. I was trying to help her, but I knew you'd think the worst." I folded my arms, still unconvinced. "You're telling me you're just some good Samaritan, buying expensive bracelets and hiding everything from your girlfriend out of the goodness of your heart?" "I didn't think it would get this far," he said, his voice breaking. "I was trying to protect her, and you—" The anger and hurt simmering inside me erupted. "You don't get to make that decision for me, Logan." I snapped. "If you'd told me from the start, maybe I'd have believed you. But now?" After all the lies and secrets? How can I trust anything you say? He stared at me, his face pale and desperate. I'll prove it, he said suddenly. I'll show you everything. The texts, the calls, whatever you need. Please give me a chance. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Logan handed me his phone, his hand shaking as he unlocked it. Go ahead, he said, sliding it across the table. Check the messages from Jamie. Read everything. I hesitated, then picked up the phone. My heart pounded as I scrolled through their texts. To my surprise, the conversations were consistent with Logan's story. Jamie vented about her pregnancy and the stress of being abandoned. Logan offered support and reassurances, but nothing overtly romantic or incriminating. You're not alone in this. I'm here for you. Thank you for being my friend, Logan. I don't know what I'd do without you. I looked up at him, my stomach churning. So why the bracelet? Why not tell me about her? Logan sighed, rubbing his temples. I wanted to help her feel less alone. The bracelet was just something kind. I didn't tell you because I knew how it would look, and I didn't want to cause problems between us. Too late for that, I muttered, setting the phone down. The uneasy silence between us was interrupted by a knock at the door. Logan stiffened, glancing at the clock. Are you expecting someone? I asked. He shook his head, his expression tense. I walked to the door, opening it cautiously. My breath caught when I saw Jamie standing there, her face flushed and anxious. Jamie? Logan said, stepping behind me. I'm sorry for showing up unannounced, she said quickly, her eyes darting between us. But I didn't know who else to turn to. What's going on? I asked, my voice cold. Jamie bit her lip, glancing at me nervously. I think you deserve the truth, she said finally. Jamie stepped inside, clutching a folder to her chest. She handed it to me, her hands trembling. This is everything, she said. The texts, the photos, proof of who the father is. It's not Logan. I stared at her, stunned. Why are you doing this now? Tears welled in her eyes. Because he doesn't deserve to lose you over my mess, she said. Logan's been nothing but kind to me, and I dragged him into this when I shouldn't have. Inside the folder were screenshots of her conversations with someone named Michael, a co-worker from her previous job. The messages were explicit, leaving no doubt that he was the father of her baby. There were even pictures of them together, timestamped just a few months before her pregnancy announcement. I handed the folder to Logan, my emotions swirling. I told you, he said quietly, his voice heavy with both relief and sadness. Jamie wiped her tears, looking at me. I'm so sorry for causing this, she said. I didn't mean to come between you two. After Jamie left, Logan and I sat in silence. You were telling the truth, I said finally, my voice soft. He nodded, his expression tired. But I still hurt you, he said. And for that, I'm sorry. I leaned back, exhaling shakily. You should have trusted me enough to tell me from the start. You're right, he admitted. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just making things worse. The truth was out, but the damage had already been done. My faith in Logan had been shaken, and even though he wasn't guilty of cheating, the secrecy and lies had left scars. Where do we go from here? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I said honestly, but I think we both need time to figure that out. The days after Jamie's visit were a blur. With the truth finally out, the chaos and tension that had gripped my life began to settle. But what replaced it wasn't relief, it was uncertainty. Logan tried to repair the damage, but every gesture, every apology felt hollow. It wasn't just the lies about Jamie that hurt, it was how little trust he'd had in me. If he'd just told me the truth from the beginning, maybe we wouldn't have ended up here. But he hadn't. And now, I couldn't stop wondering if this was a pattern. If the next time something went wrong, Logan would make the same choices. One evening, as we sat across from each other at the dinner table, the silence between us grew unbearable. "Liam," Logan said finally, his voice soft, "I know I hurt you. I know I should have been honest. But I love you, and I don't want to lose you. Please, let me fix this." I set down my fork, staring at him. "How can I believe you, Logan? You kept so much from me, and I spent weeks thinking you were cheating on me. Do you know how that felt?" "I do," he said quickly, "and I hate myself for it. I swear, I'll never keep something like this from you again. Just tell me what I can do to make it right." I wanted to believe him. A part of me still loved Logan, still remembered the good times we'd shared. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt and humiliated, wasn't sure I could trust him again. "I need time," I said finally, my voice trembling. "I can't give you an answer right now." He nodded, though his shoulders slumped. "I understand," he said quietly. The next few weeks were a trial. Logan gave me space, but I could feel his presence everywhere. In the house, in the memories we created together. I started spending more time at Rachel's, needing her support as I tried to sort through my feelings. "You don't owe him anything," she said one evening as we sipped wine on her couch. "He made his choices, and now he has to deal with the consequences." "I know," I said, "but it's not that simple. I don't know if I'm ready to throw everything away." "Just make sure you're not staying out of guilt or habit," Rachel said. "You deserve to be with someone who trusts you enough to be honest." Her words stayed with me, echoing in my mind as I tried to figure out what to do. One day, Logan came home early and found me packing a suitcase. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice panicked. I looked at him, my heart heavy. "I need some time away," I said. "To think, to figure out what I want." His face fell, and he nodded slowly. "I'll wait," he said, "for as long as it takes." I spent a week at a cabin upstate, away from the noise and distractions of the city. The quiet gave me the clarity I needed to think about what I wanted, about what I deserved. When I returned, Logan was waiting for me. He looked nervous, like he was bracing himself for the worst. "Have you made up your mind?" he asked. I took a deep breath, meeting his gaze. "I have." I told him I couldn't do it anymore. "I love you, Logan," I said, my voice breaking. "But love isn't enough. Trust is just as important, and right now, I don't have that with you." He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'll always love you, Liam. And I'm so sorry for everything I've done." "So am I whispered. The next few weeks were painful as we untangled our lives. Logan moved out, and I stayed in the apartment, trying to rebuild my life without him. It wasn't easy. Some days, I missed him so much it hurt. But I knew I'd made the right decision. Months later, I found myself sitting in the same cafe where Logan and I had had our first date. The memories didn't sting as much anymore. They felt like a chapter from a book I'd finished reading. As I sipped my coffee, Rachel's words came back to me. "You deserve to be with someone who trusts you enough to be honest." She was right. And one day, I'd find that person. But for now, I was content to focus on myself, to rediscover who I was outside of a relationship. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.